Well, after coming out of the Manjusha retreat, there's a lot to process. And so one of the things that I kind of came up for me and I kind of latched onto was the second kind of compassion, the compassion observing phenomena. Because I understand in my mind that all things are impermanent, that there's no such thing as a permanent, self-sufficient, substantially existent self. But most of the time when my mind gets afflicted, I know that I am not thinking in that way, that everything is permanent. There is somebody in charge trying to control this person, this life, even you. Okay, so I know that I have an intellectual understanding of this, but that going through life, it's a lot more challenging to get this on a more deeper level. So then Venerable said a few things in the teaching that I've been thinking about that have really been helpful. The first one, she said, is that sentient beings want happiness and not suffering. But she said that their karma, both virtuous and non-virtuous, is reflected in front of them, creating from the past ripening as either their body and mind, the ripening, what kind of rebirth they have, what they're experiencing, or their habits. So that sentient beings appearing to me is, I've always loved her term karmic bubble, because I'm so fixated, I'm so into solidifying things, that making things sort of this way, more light, more floating, more fluctuating is really helpful. And that this karmic bubble is created by their karma caused by their ignorance. So trying to tie this into the 12 links that we've been going over the past number of months, that by this karma being reflected in front of them, the 12 links are showing themselves in the form of this experience in life, and that's what I'm seeing, and that's how I experience life. So for some reason, for all the years that Venerable has taught about these three kinds of compassion, we've had Geshe Yeshe's taught about it, other teachers have taught about it. I've gotten the three of them confused till I could never see who the object was, what was the self that we were trying to understand did not exist. But for some reason this time, something's been jarred from the teachings this week. And getting a sense of this fluttering, this fluctuating, this, the sands moving beneath our feet, this whole impermanent thing is just going down into a deeper place. And then, but yet I say to myself, well then why can't we get this? We're experiencing it all the time. We respond to impermanence all the time. And I can say from my side, not very easily or not very happily a lot of the time. We're characterized by impermanence. So what is the problem here? And of course, it is because we've got this self-grasping. The self that thinks it's in charge, the self that thinks that's permanent, and everything else around it is permanent. So that's the main obstacle to being able to look at how this fluctuating, fleeting life, that's the nature of things. So once again, I'm getting these pieces of the puzzle somewhat put back together, a little bit more cleanly for myself. And then I said to myself, well, okay, Semke, if you were to somehow, it may not be a direct realization, but let's say you get a fairly strong intellectual understanding, almost an inference of impermanence, maybe not even at the gross level, much less the subtle level. How would life be different for you? And what would be different if you had some understanding about this lack of, the soul is still in there. For so many years I haven't been in the religion of origin. Every once in a while, this floating, vague, permanent thing that's sort of watching and is taking notes, is going to get some sort of reward at the end of the day, is still in there, And so what would happen if I had less of a grip on that? At least a stable inference of impermanence, more and more subtle than just seeing myself in the mirror and combing, washing my face and things like that, and seeing things change like that. Would I get as disappointed as I do? Would I get triggered as much as I do? When I don't get my expectations met, how would I respond? Would I be blaming so much? Would I be judging so much? Would I be projecting so much? And as I thought about this over the past few days, I am seeing that probably instead of that, I'd have a lot more ease. I'd have a lot more flexibility because I know this is kind of how it is. That I'd have a lot more engagement in life with a lot more, less fear and less like defensiveness because there's not this solid person, I think, in charge that's trying to control things, that's not getting her way. It's not existing. You're making this stuff up. If I saw everything as a reflection of my karma that I have set in motion, who knows when, and its momentariness as it's ripening, how would that help me to see myself more compassionately, and how would that help me to see others more compassionately? It's like this whole idea of the moon on this lake that's got a breeze on it, that is rippling, that our life is like this rippling moon. I love the analogy, and try to see how does that come alive for me when I look at my life, and I look at my practice, and I look at everything that happens around me. So then what Venerable said, she said, well, spend some time thinking of yourself and others as having this permanent momentariness, that all these people, including myself, trying desperately to have a life that's predictable, that's secure, a life that what they feel they have some control over, that can bring about the things that they want for themselves, for their family, for society. Yet because of the transient nature of all of it, despite all the dreams, those dreams may not be actualized. Those dreams may not come true. They may not make them happy as they had hoped. There is no guarantee. It's almost at some place that I'm more attached to the stability. I'm more attached to the predictability first before I can really feel like I'm going to have happiness. If these things line up and I get some control and some security, then I'm going to be happy. It's not happiness first, security afterwards. I've got everything lined out for me to be happy. And that people that we're doing this all the time with our deepest wishes, our deepest dreams, and there is no guarantee. And then the grasping at the self that wants these things. We believe there's someone there who wants all these good circumstances to last, that wants safety, that wants stability. Grasping at someone that we think exists that doesn't. I've been starting to say this a number of times during the day. When I get afflicted, you're not who you think you are. You are not who you think you are. That is not what you think it is. That is not what you think it is. Just to loosen the grasp on this permanence, this self-sufficiency, and just having the karmic predisposition to begin with of being self-sufficient and autonomous and independent, just from my own karmic view for most of my life, this has been a really jarring kind of turn for me to even think about this. So that observing sentient beings grasping at impermanence as permanent and suffer because of that grasping. So by doing this for myself and see the suffering that comes when I have this permanence going on, when I have this person that I think in charge trying to control things going on, afflictions arise. The ignorance propels those afflictions to arise. And then I suffer. I'm starting to put that 12 links does work like this. You know, they're not disconnected, they're not discordant. The way that I see myself, the way the afflictions arise when all these things don't get met, and then the karma is created, and then we go on from there. So, and then seeing that in myself, how can compassion not arise for others? Because it's a lose-lose situation. It's futile. There's no way that things can happen the way that we want them to, because it's just the nature of the beast. So it happened like yesterday, okay? Yesterday was this wonderful day here. I had plans. I love plans. You know, they're general, they don't have a lot of details, you know my plans. They're big, big things. Well, things kept changing all day long. I had to keep making adjustments. They kept having these things happen. People were showing up, not showing up, doing things I didn't think they were going to be doing, getting hurt, which they weren't supposed to happen. At first, I was not happy. I had plans. But at the Abbey, as in life, but different than out there in that unreal world, is that impermanence here is pointed out in teachings, in example, in modeling, in our teachers' reminders over and over again, that the reality is impermanence, transitory, momentariness, and you do not exist as you appear. So loosen up, relax, lighten up, unclench the fists, unclench the fingers. So I think it was after I apologized to Joseph Middlebury about being such a jerk, that I let things kind of ride out the rest of the day. But once again, this is a place where we get to learn. Out in the world doesn't give us that. The world tells you that permanence is the name of the game. It tells you you are in charge, that you are a concrete, permanent, self-existent, substantially existent, inherently existent person, and you are in control. So we've got this whole big conditioning going on that we try to dismantle, and luckily living here at the Abbey 24/7, you get that not just reflected in your face, you get it thrown in your face, you get the rug pulled out from under you. It's wonderful practice. It's just really wonderful practice. And so little by little, I can see how compassion can increase, and to admit that part of the problem for me is that I don't pay attention. You know, do you ever find that you're watching the day in your life, you're doing an exchange with somebody, and then things sort of glass over? You know, you just stop paying attention. And those are the moments where you can really see the process of impermanence happening in exchanges, in relationship, in doing things. But sometimes familiarity breeds spaciness. And all too well, and then we get into trouble because then something goes wrong, the grasping happens, the afflictions arise, and you go, how did that happen? Well, I lost track about 25 minutes ago of my whole relationship to this beautiful life, and this is what happens. So by looking at all that has been undone for me in the past few years because of these beautiful teachings, I actually think a little bit more that what I expect is untenable, and that life as a fleeting, transitory, karmic appearance is becoming more interesting. Not amazing yet, but interesting. And I find that the more that I can see that as part of my life, that when I see other people hooked into the permanence, hooked into the self-sufficient, substantially existent sense of self and the suffering that they experience, then my heart does, as Venerable says, hopefully compassion will arise. How can it not? The futility of our misunderstanding, of our erroneous thinking. And so looking at futility as a good indicator that things are starting to change. And that's what I've been seeing lately. It's just the futility on how I perceive things, getting my way, being under control. That's just not working anymore. So I'm hoping that not only as my compassion for my own situation increases, that this compassion observing phenomena, observing sentient beings, lacking these different types of solid selves, changing moment by moment, will open up my heart to be much more fearless, much more engaged, because it's quite a remarkable phenomenon to be in something that's moving all the time, changing all the time. Always opportunity for change, transformation, making another choice, making another decision, starting afresh. There's nothing that's like stuck. And I like that idea. So let's see what happens. I'm going to see what's going to happen.